Let's talk about boss battles. Why do we love them so much? Is it because they're challenging? Is it because they test your skills at each game in unique ways? Is it because they look better than the rest of the game, or because their music stands out? For so many kinds of awesome, not only is this video bigger than usual, but to get more entries from all consoles, I have joined with my buddy Chewy and the creator of the Chaos Theater website, Krazer.
This should go without saying, but we haven't played every game ever made. So if we didn't include a boss from something you like, don't freak out. This video is just for fun, and we're here to show the very best of our experiences with these boss battles.
So let's cut to the chase. The Chaos Theater presents Top 25 Boss Battles in Video Games.
Pokemon. In a series about becoming the very best like no one ever was, most of the time your final opponent was, well, the very best like no one ever was. So, whenever you beat the Pokemon League's champion, you felt like the friggin' king. But what if there was someone better? What if that person was your old player character Red in the ultimate match of equals? Let's just say that concept paid off.
As your final challenge, Red was armed with Pokemon of all types. Chances were that if you relied on a single Pokemon or type, you were pretty much boned. So you were forced to have a balanced party, not that it'll save you from his hell spawn of a Snorlax.
But as challenging as the fight with Red is, the satisfaction you get from winning is so worth it. This battle tied the first two Pokemon generations together in a way that said, you thought you were the very best, but now you're even better.
In several earlier videos of mine, I've expressed a certain dislike for math.
Nobody said there be math!
Yeah, like that. The punchline is show minimum moto.
At this stage in The World Ends With You, Neku is under the impression that the math-obsessed Sho is the one who killed him and sent him to the game. As such, from a revenge standpoint, this holds a lot of emotional intensity. Of course, until you realize that he wasn't responsible.
Dude, buzzkill.
Try some more.
Anyways, the fightless Sho has a lot going on for it. It derived much of its challenge factor by having Sho attack you on both of the DS's screens, while you can only attack on one. In a game based around teamwork and close interplay between party members on each screen, the limits imposed by this fight make it a solid test of your experience with the system.
At least to me, another thing that makes this battle an instant classic is the fact that this guy constantly spouts math puns in battle. And all of them make sense.
So is that a slow?
Even some of his attacks are math-based, like his imaginary number attack, which is able to damage anyone whose level is a multiple of 1. And only adding to this fight's impact is when Joshua takes a hit from this attack for Neku after Sho is defeated. Show minimum moto, because the Autarch is Zeta lame for hating on math.
Shut up.
The first two Mass Effect games have been lauded for showing us what can be done with the gaming medium's story capabilities. That leaves a problem for this list. With its focus mainly on story, Mass Effect series bosses either suck, or they're non-existent. Hell, even the boss on this list isn't particularly interesting for its combat, it's more its story. You killed Don Corleone.
The Shadow Broker fight from the second game's Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC actually has surprising depth for a Mass Effect boss. While it boils down to the same hide behind things, peek out and shoot mechanics that defined Mass Effect 2's gameplay, the fight also forces you to use physical attacks and pick your shots.
In this fight, you only face the Shadow Broker with Liara, as your other companion is knocked out by him, cutting you off from a third of your control and forcing you to plan around a biotic who has short range and can only use 2 out of 3 abilities. Amazingly, this is not a drawback, as it increases the difficulty and neatens the story. This is Liara and Shepard together, fighting against the criminal overlord of the galaxy and helping Liara get over one final hurdle.
And the backstory is where this fight truly shines. This man is the dark underside to all of galactic politics. He has massive resources under his command, such as thousands of operatives, including Spectres. You get a sense of this when he says that the crew of his massive ship, a crew you spent the last few minutes mowing down, is replaceable. Hence all the satisfaction you get when you take this notorious criminal down.
The bulk of Catherine combines a choice-based romance involving your current relationship being sabotaged by a succubus and, of all things, a block puzzle game taking place in cursed nightmares. If you end up dying, you'll turn into a stage prop for the world's most morbid metal band. And if you manage to survive through these nightmares and your nightmare of a love life, you find out the bartender was behind it all!
Snake, did you like my sunglasses?
Boss reveals he was testing your faithfulness to your girlfriend through these trials, and sends you into the nightmare one last time at a shot at taking him down. When you make it to him, he immediately starts screwing with your ability to finish the puzzles, most notably by obliterating your blocks with his enormous hand cannon. Then, when Thomas Mutton reveals his true form as Doomazid, the god of sheepbeards, he starts sabotaging your path with meteors and curses.
Because the landscape is constantly changing, you're forced to adapt your strategy and plan ahead, making this a fast-paced yet completely fair challenge unlike anything else in Catherine. It's pretty intense for something as unsuspecting as a puzzle game, so let it never be said that puzzle games can't kick ass.
One of the more inventive evil doppelgangers we've seen in a video game comes from OKAMI. Not that one! However, it's tougher to describe NINETAILS as a doppelganger because, well, it's a fox rather than a wolf. Instead of being the traditional shadowy replica archetype seen in so many video games, NINETAILS steals Amaterasu's power and becomes a god in its own right. And then it kills the Queen of Japan. For such a lighthearted game, you really wanted to see this monster die, so thankfully the battle with NINETAILS was big on catharsis.
This whole fight is basically NINETAILS trolling the gods. It mimics the appearance of the celestial brush gods, it can cancel your magic attacks with its own brush, and if you manage to trigger its weak spot and take out all of the fox spirits inhabiting NINETAILS, all that will be left is an ordinary fox. You are then free to slash Vulpix here until the cows come home.
If there's one major drawback to this fight, it's that like everything else in OKAMI, this battle is insultingly easy. Its weakness is even foreshadowed in the level before this. It would be like if we did something like this.
See this? This is important.
It's a piece of candy!
An important piece of candy?
The climax of Cave Story is a shootout against the Doctor-possessed Island Core and its two mind-controlled minions. During this battle, the Undead Core is heavily armed with all kinds of firepower and you're being pursued by Sue and Misery. If you weren't ready, this fight could almost end up like a bullet hell platformer.
This was the kind of fight that tested all of your skills, primarily jumping and aiming while on various surfaces, and especially your ability to use the jetpack to evade Sue and Misery. There's a lot happening in this fight, yet at no point is it ever distracting or cheap.
This battle is only made more hectic by the scenario at hand. If you lose, the Doctor rules the world. If you win, the island sinks and people die. Am I even playing the right Cave Story? I mean the bunnies! The bunnies!
Welcome to my lair!
That's right, it's Wheatley. Despite at first looking like a rehash of the GLaDOS battle from the original Portal, it's actually more like the GLaDOS fight in reverse. Wheatley's taken precautions to ensure that he won't be beaten the same way GLaDOS was, creating an ingenious four-part plan that corrects all the mistakes GLaDOS made last time, while simultaneously adding an obvious flaw.
While the use of Portal 2's mechanics in the Wheatley fight is pretty standard, the true joy from this fight comes from how hilarious it is. The way you beat Wheatley is by making him even stupider by adding defective personality cores like the aptly named Space Sphere.
What's your favorite thing about space? Mine is space.
After Wheatley actually pulls off a smart last-ditch move, his incompetence over maintaining the enrichment center leads to complete lunacy. Who wrote that pun?
Hey, who chose to say that line?
Do I really have a choice here? Anyway, despite the entire concept of space being completely thrown out the window in the Wheatley battle, it's already set to become a classic moment in gaming. It blends together the Portal series' two most important elements, its physics and its crazy humor, and it takes them to the moon.
Remind me why I signed up for this shit.
Before Ridley from Metroid became booed off stage for being the villain that made Samus piss herself, there was the Meta-Ridley battle from Metroid Prime. An underdog story that didn't involve cheap emotional manipulation, you started off Metroid Prime much too weak to face the new badass Ridley head-on. But by the time you collected the 12 artifacts, Ridley throws an explosive wrench into the works, and so it becomes time for your planet-wide training montage to finally pay off.
Ridley is no slouch. It takes full advantage of its wings and new hardware by using it to fly all over the place and bomb you from out of the blue. This gets tense as you find yourself having to constantly predict his movements and fry him when he attacks up close.
It's one of those battles that are simple yet effective. No complex weak point exploitation, just an awesome, up-close and personal battle to the death. This battle set the standard for future Ridley battles, fights we look forward to every time the plot resurrected him.
He destroyed your city, he killed your girlfriend, and now it's you versus Kessler where it all began, at the site of the explosion that jump-started Cole's adventure. It's one giant super-powered brawl, with Kessler being armed with souped-up versions of your attacks that all but require you've perfected dodging and attacking him when his guard is lowered.
As if it wasn't strange enough that his attacks are so similar to yours, Kessler then starts spouting things about your personal life and giving obscure warnings about the future.
Your old man carried a picture of Trish in his wallet, telling people she was the daughter he never had. Did you know that?
Then when the battle ends, you find out how he knows all this.
As it turns out, Kessler is Cole from the future, and everything he did in this game was just to toughen him up so that he wouldn't have anything to lose when tasked with saving the world. If the battle itself didn't make you think, holy shit, then this ending scene will.
Even if you haven't played Dark Souls, you've probably heard that it's one of the most ball-busting games released in recent years. So as you could probably imagine, its boss fights are difficult to match. And then there's Ornstein and SMOUGH. Combined, the two bosses have many attacks for you to watch out for, and given the fact they can kill you in just 2 hits and rush you with their varying speeds, it can be a real chore to balance attacking and healing.
But what really makes this boss battle stand out is that when either Ornstein or SMOUGH dies, the remaining boss will absorb the powers of the one that just got killed and form a new strategy. So basically, you get to choose which way your ass gets handed to you. If you kill Ornstein first, Orcafat here will gain electrical powers, resulting in his attacks getting stronger and his range getting increased by the electricity. If you kill SMOUGH first, Ornstein copies SMOUGH's moves and takes a page from Rita Repulsa's book.
Make my monster! Bro!
The whole duality behind this battle may seem simple, but regardless of which enemy you kill first, you are guaranteed a challenge. It all just depends on what you think is more challenging, a harder hitting version of someone you've already faced, or an equally challenging enemy with a much wider and less predictable attack pattern. Either way, your repeated demise is inevitable.
The final battle of Kirby's Return to Dreamland starts off like every other finale in the series. There's a plot twist where the real villain is found out, he escapes into space, and you have to beat him down. Except this time, instead of using the Star Rod or the Rainbow Sword or this thing, you use a freaking dragon! As you chase Magolor into space, he summons the Lore Starcutter that you were building this whole game, and in a cruel twist of irony, you have to destroy it. Oh, who the hell am I kidding? You don't care about irony. You are fighting a spaceship while riding on a dragon! Screw cowboys and aliens, dragon versus spaceship! But that's not all. The true battle with Magolor is yet to even start, and it's a standout challenge among the otherwise simple Kirby formula.
Once you take down the Lore Starcutter, you have to fight Magolor on foot, and admittedly, it starts off pretty standard until he forces you to break his shield with super abilities. Even when it's broken, he'll block your final Ultra Sword and force you into a blade clash. You win, your sword grows to ridiculous size, and you chop Mags to Kingdom Come.
But that's not all!
Magolor's own hatred gets fused into his crown, and he starts firing lasers that cover the whole room, flipping the screen, and using dark versions of your super abilities. It's a long battle, but when you KO Magolor so hard that he freaking disintegrates, all you feel is total satisfaction.
Kefka from Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite villains of all time. A psychotic jester that takes the power of the gods of magic for himself. And wouldn't you know it, the final confrontation with him is equally...
Sephiroth. I don't even need to explain how good he is. You've seen this guy everywhere. You know he killed Aerith. You know he burned down Cloudstone, and you know about the classic
The
battle.
Kefka finale has divine comedy symbolism reflecting his entire character arc, and has 4 unique phases.
Symbolism doesn't mean shit if the boss isn't a challenge. Seriously, you can kill Kefka's last form in 1 hit. At least say for Sephiroth's difficulty change depending on how you played the game.
Yeah, and what about Supernova? It takes forever to do anything, it can't even kill you, and the sun is still there in the ending. At least Kefka's Forsaken
If
could-
he ever gets to use that weak-ass attack. Besides, Keffi didn't have the most famous boss theme ever.
One-winged chiptune? It sounds so stupid! Seriously, recorded chorus over synthesized-
That's rich coming from a guy defending a 16-bit Joker ripoff.
At least he wasn't some mama's boy. There's something you're not telling us?
Hipster.
Graphics whore.
For the love of God, both of you shut up. Both Kefka and Sephiroth are excellent boss battles and characters. Now let each other like what they like and let's get this video done with.
Bayonetta is one of those games where you're constantly thinking, there's not going to be a point where things stop getting bigger, is there? You fight increasingly larger angels, and so the natural progression of things leads to the savior from Devil May Cry. I mean God itself. The fight with Jubileus is a strange case. While it's a very cool battle that tests every one of your skills in the game, we felt that the scale of this fight is honestly a bit mismatched.
You start off the fight attacking Jubileus' evil face, hair, things, while she transforms the very landscape around you. It's pretty awesome at first, but then again, this is most of the fight. In all the other fights in Bayonetta, you got to beat up angels with giant hair demons, and yet in this fight, you never really get the satisfaction of beating up Jubileus like that. Until the end! Holy shitsome!
You just punch God in the freaking soul, and it proceeds to orbit the entire solar system and burn inside the sun. And then it's still not over. You then have to blow up Jubileus' body before it hits the earth. Then it's over.
I know we ripped on how the first part of this fight isn't that exciting, but even then it tests your abilities in more complex and even fun ways, including outrunning a freaking black hole and dodging what I can only describe as mini galaxies. And even though the fight's scale makes no sense at all, it's still really awesome to look at. Bottom line, the Jubileus fight may be unbalanced, but with how flashy it is, you'll end up loving it anyways.
Back before over-the-top action games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, and even No More Heroes existed, we had Contra. The third game in the series had a level that starts off on a high-speed motorcycle section and ends with
You're fired.
How do you even? You have to take down a huge-ass warship while jumping and dropping off missiles to move, while being shot at by the warship, while all your missiles are being blown up around you. Just, holy crap!
The warship battle puts your reflexes to the test unlike anything else due to how much is going on. No one could ever accomplish this, but that's why it's awesome. In Tales of the Abyss, there's an interesting dynamic between the main protagonist Luke and the antagonist Ash. The man known as Luke was a replica of the real Luke who was born of royal blood. The two were swapped at a young age, leaving the fake Luke to be treated as royalty, and the real Luke, who would later become known as Ash, cast out as a mere nobody.
Just before the game's finale, Luke and Ash cross swords with each other one last time, though they're more or less on the same side at this point. Because of Luke's status as a mere copy, and Ash's stolen glory, both men are out to prove that their lives are not meaningless. The fight is basically built on this personal conflict, and it's emphasized by this fight's musical theme, Meaning of Birth. Even then, this is a decent duel, if very short. It's a very spontaneous kind of battle with no set battle script, almost always requiring a different strategy if you fought Ash on repeat.
When Ash is defeated, he gives Luke his weapon, the Key of Lorelei, so that Luke can advance to his final battle. This, however, leaves Ash weaponless. Ash basically sacrificed himself to merely hold off the enemy so Luke can go on. And yet as tragic as this is for Ash, his sacrifice is on his own terms. He finds his own meaning through his own death.